Oh, there we go. Let's try this again, shall we? Okay. One more time. Welcome to A Conversation with the Mutts. I'm your host, the Celtic Mutt.
And I am Mrs. Mutt.
And this evening we will be discussing the history of beer. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I understand that beer is far more than American, but we are going to discuss the American portion of the history of beer. We will be touching on some of the aspects that predate this country, but largely we will be covering the American portion. In fact, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Mutt briefly while she discusses the overall history.
Well, I have a question first of all. Are we on YouTube?
What?
Are we on YouTube?
We should be. Yeah. We should be. We better be. Yeah, we're
Okay.
on YouTube.
There we go. I'm sorry. I wasn't looking in the right place.
And again, more technical issues. Um, Nobody said we were professionals, folks.
And I am in the process of getting my notes
Hmm.
up. So,
Okay, we are 5x5. Thank you, Mac. I don't know what happened to the theme song this evening. For some reason, it was acting wonky. I was trying to get it to play, and it wasn't playing. So forgive us there. I will say this while Mrs. Mutt takes care of an issue she's having. Um, we just missed uh, Craft Beer Week. It was May the 12th through May 18th. Um, I know that a lot of people aren't crazy about craft beers, but I did find that interesting that it is the 12th through the 18th. I will also say that there are more breweries in the U.S. than in any other country in the world. America has over 9,500 breweries. There is at least one brewery in every state. And a little later in the show, I am going to be covering the top 25 cities with a population of per capita of 50,000 that have the most breweries. So if you're looking to move closer to your favorite brewery, you might want to stay tuned. The first beer, the first American beer boom started in the 1800s and collapsed in the late 19th century. The U.S. had over 4,000 breweries, but then came that ugly thing called prohibition, consolidation, and the rise of mass market lagers. The modern craft beer movement is a second wave, and it is indeed going strong. Um, in 1978, it was the it was President Jimmy Carter who signed a bill making home brewing legal again. It was that bill that bill that unlocked a slew of creative people in kitchens and garages across this country that started the home brews and microbreweries we think of today. The first, oh wait, I already read that part. I don't know how that happened. You got it in there twice. Did you find what you were looking for, dear?
yes.
Okay.
That was what was that about the first boom?
The first beer boom in America
Well,
it started, the first big brewing type thing started.
well, at least as far as once the Europeans got here.
Well, okay, go on.
There was brewing here before the Europeans got here.
You tell.
It actually fermented beverage brewing. They actually started. There was they say Gruit, Gruit, like fermented beverage, made from maize, birch sap, and water, for example. Remnants of which have been dated back to between 828 and 1126 AD. Came from the Pueblos, pardon me. There was also the Creek and Cherokee across the southeast used berries and other fruits. The Huron are said to have had a simple alcoholic gruel from fermented corn.
Yeah, that's what I want. I would really want to drink a gruel. That doesn't even sound appealing. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. It just
Thankfully,
doesn't.
that was used for ceremonial purposes, so it wasn't something that they drank on an everyday basis.
Gross. It doesn't. How do they market? How would you market gruel today, ladies and gentlemen? I can't see marketing something called a gruel. I just can't.
Beer and other alcoholic beverages were prevalent in pre-Columbian America, so it would take European excess to bring alcohol consumption to a fever pitch, though. On the rosier side of history, Native Americans are to thank for sharing their brew recipes.
1 second, dear. Mac. Yeah, your daughter's right. The weather here is not super spectacular at the moment. His daughter is in Virginia Beach at the moment.
I see. Yeah, we're chilly in this area, and
it's just not. Yeah, it's not.
Been rainy for the whole week.
If she's here on vacation, let me go ahead and apologize for Mother Nature. That's all I can do, Mac. All right, I'm sorry,
this
dear.
Is not the ideal vacationer weather, even though the unofficial vacation season has started as of last weekend.
Hey, Steel and Tree, how are you?
Yeah, the Native Americans were nice enough to share their brew recipes with the thirsty pilgrims.
Were they now?
Yeah.
Impressive.
A diary entry from a Mayflower passenger reads, quote, "We could not now take time for further search for adequate land, our victuals being much spent, especially our beer."
Oh, no.
Yeah. So as the pilgrims were establishing themselves, they would have enjoyed a 3 to 4%
basically
alcohol.
What we would classify today as a non-alcoholic beer, then basically.
Yeah, ABV. I know what that.
ABV.
Yeah, give me a second. I know what that means, and I have forgotten. Alcohol by volume.
Okay.
There we go. So it was a 3 to 4% ABV beer that was brewed from, quote, molasses, well boiled, with sassafras or pine infused into it, according to colonist William Penn, often from a waxed leather tankard known as a blackjack.
Okay.
But if those ingredients weren't on hand, there was room to improvise. They say that colonial beers could be made from just about anything: pumpkins, persimmons, corn stalks, and Jerusalem artichokes, with hop substitutes including wild carrot seed, coriander seed, brown sugar, horehound, and wormwood.
A wormwood brew, huh?
Eric says something about something wrong with.
Nothing wrong with non-alcoholic beer. Been drinking it for 33 years.
Well, hold on, Eric. That might have been a little heady for some. We find out here that no matter what the raw materials were used, the drink would have been essential, not only for reliably clean drinking water, but also as an escape from the harsh reality of life with no safety net. For these reasons, colonists drank much more on average than we do today, but the beer was weaker. Some of it was as little as 1% ABV.
That's crazy.
Even the kids drank.
Well, that's
often that theirs was a cider and molasses mixture known as ciderkin.
Well, that's because the cider and the beers were safer to drink than the water in a lot of cases.
Because you had to purify the water in the process of making the beer.
Yep. And yes, molasses is a big one. It's used in both licit and illicit adult beverage making.
Right. The Pilgrims were actually not the first Europeans to brew.
No?
No, here on American soil.
The Vikings?
The Pilgrim, no.
I'm guessing.
No, by 1612, Dutch immigrant.
Okay.
Adrian Block and Hans Christensen, not Hans Christian Sanderson. Keep that in mind.
Hans Christian. Yeah.
This is not how Mother Goose came about.
Right.
Just Hans Christensen. They had established the New World's first known commercial brewery in a log house at the southern tip of New Amsterdam, now
New York,
Manhattan.
Yep, New York. Yep.
In 1629, the Dutch East India Company built another New Amsterdam brewery on Brewer Street, which is now Stone Street, drawing water from the Heergracht Canal. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But that ran down what is now Broad Street until it was filled in during the British occupation in 1676.
Okay.
So a century before the Revolution, beer drinking culture in America was alive and well. There appears to have been 26 breweries and taverns in New Amsterdam. So this is New York.
Now, do you happen to, and I'm curious, and I'm probably jumping ahead here, but I am curious since we're talking about this. Do you happen to have what would be the oldest commercial, what would now be classified as a commercial beer?
Give me a little bit, because I believe I do a little further in.
I think I read something about Ben Franklin or something.
Yes, I think I have that. I know the answer to that off the top of my head. Okay. But I want to double check to make sure I have it later on.
Okay.
Again, those were 26 breweries and taverns in New Amsterdam following a well-structured system. The producers were taxed 2 guilders per barrel. And that fee was split between the brewer and the tapster or retailer.
Now, do we know how much a guilder would?
No, I did not look to see how much a guilder
would equate to today.
Right. Now, a few decades prior, the entire island of New Amsterdam had been purchased from Native Americans for just 60 guilders.
Oh, okay. So 60 guilders, because I know the answer to that one. It would have
Hi, Deb.
like 30. That's like $32. Manhattan was purchased for like 32 bucks.
Okay. Now, under the governance of Peter Stuyvesant, again, not sure I'm pronouncing that right, the colonists were barred from drunkenness on the Sabbath, and innkeepers could not serve any wines, beers, or any strong waters. I thought that was an interesting way to put it. Strong waters to anyone but travelers and boarders on Sunday. Traces of which hung around until craft beers. There you go. Most recent revolution. All retailers had to close at 9 p.m. and couldn't serve without a license. Even with a license, sale of alcohol to Native Americans was forbidden. Beer making followed wherever Europeans settled. Philadelphia saw its first brewery, built in 1686 by William Frampton, who was reputed to have brought the first cargo ship of slaves to the city. From this time until the Civil War, beer production and consumption in America was largely a local affair. Storage and transport were inadequate, which meant most beer was coming from local taverns or home brewed, which explains in part why so many of our founding fathers were avid beer lovers. It's said that one of George Washington's first acts as commander of the Continental Army was to order that every soldier receive a daily quart of ale, with his rations. A decree that would require confrontation with Congress in order to maintain as the war progressed. Washington was a learned brewer and was said by a friend to typically sport, quote, a silver pint cup or mug of beer placed by his plate, which he drank while dining. The drink would generally have been home brewed at Mount Vernon and would often have been Washington's own recipe. And I thought this was interesting. A handwritten copy of that recipe can still be seen at the New York Public Library.
Really?
And it has been said by those who have tried it to be superb. Before, I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
I was going to say, if we find it, we may have to. And I'm not a beer drinker, ladies and gentlemen. Neither one of us is. No. You all know I like my Irish whiskey, but I'll try anything once.
Yeah.
Just about.
It's been right close to 6 months since I had a drink.
Probably close to that,
yeah. The irony is I'm the one that picked the topic.
Yep.
So, yeah.
My teetotaler wife picked the topic this week. But I think it's great.
Now, before, during, and after the Revolution, Washington and his employees would continue to brew, purchase, and consume beer and its constituent parts at a steady clip. Along with wine, spirits, and cider, beer was part and parcel to his daily life, and he wasn't alone. Most founding fathers, including Patrick Henry, James Madison, Samuel Adams, and Ben Franklin, partook and promoted America's fledgling industry, recognizing its integral role, in the formation and stability of young America. Oh, pardon me.
So what you're telling me basically then is this country was founded on two things, the Bible and beer.
Yeah, pretty much. And I've actually got a quote from one of your favorite presidents.
Oh, okay, go for it.
Well, I'll pull it up in a minute, and after I get done with this article. So homebrewing actually became a point of patriotic pride, and taverns became the social hub of revolutionaries, a place where tough, spirited conversations could be had and courage could be mounted. Benjamin Franklin brought back a particularly enjoyable spruce beer recipe from his tenure as French ambassador, a form of which is still produced, or brewed by Yards in Philadelphia. Thomas Jefferson was even said to have composed a draft of the Declaration of Independence over a draft of ale, pardon me, and would continue to experiment with brewing at Monticello after his presidency.
Proud of you, Mac. 17 beers and ain't shot at nobody yet or nothing. I'm proud of you. Go ahead, babe. I'm sorry.
You'd be hard-pressed to find a framer who didn't enjoy tossing back a few. Save for, I want to take a guess, who was the teetotaler?
Hamilton.
Yep. Who was referred to by John Adams as, quote, an insolent coxcomb, who became, quote, silly and vaporing if he drank anything more than coffee. The firm establishment of the American brewing industry emboldened the framers, who called for a boycott of English beer imports in 1770, further pushing America towards independence. When the last British soldiers left American soil, same difference, in 1783, Washington celebrated with his officers at New York's Fraunces Tavern. By 1810, and you remember I gave you those numbers on New Amsterdam of breweries.
Yeah, earlier, yeah.
Yeah, by 1810, there were roughly 140 breweries producing around 180,000 barrels of beer annually, though most remain small scale. 9 years later, we had the steam engine.
Was the steam produced by beer?
Well, this was installed at Francis Perot's brewery in Philadelphia. The first of its kind was used for beer making purposes.
Interesting.
As the Industrial Revolution gathered steam, so too did means of beer production and transport, ushering in the means of support large brewing operations. Here is the answer to your question.
Okay.
In 1829 saw the founding of D.G. Youngling Brewery in Pottsville, now the oldest operating brewery in America. And we were told by one of our audience members that
one of our moderators.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry, I've forgotten she was a moderator. That this was actually started by Franklin, was it?
Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah. Now, it doesn't state that here.
Yes, he started Yuengling beer. Yes.
And that is actually the now oldest operating brewery in America, and that was in Pottsville. That would eventually become Pabst.
Pabst Blue Ribbon?
Or pardon me, what would eventually become Pabst began in 1844, followed by Schlitz in 1849 and Anheuser-Busch in 1852. By 1860, there were over 1,260 breweries producing over 1 million barrels of beer for a population of 31 million.
How many? Wait. Say that again. Repeat that.
Okay. By 1860, let's back up here. 1810, there were 140 breweries
Right.
producing 180,000 barrels of beer annually.
Okay.
So now, by 1860, so this is 50 years later, there are now over 1,260 breweries producing over 1 million barrels of beer for a population of 31 million, mostly in New York and Pennsylvania.
Everybody gets to drink.
Brewing had entered a new era and would continue its meteoric growth, peaking at 4,173 breweries in 1873. So just another 13 years later. Improved manufacturing would see beer production continue, increasing to more than 60 million barrels as the number of breweries actually dipped to 1,568.
Hold on. 1 million bottles of beer on the wall, 1 million bottles of beer. You take one down, you pass it around. 999,999 bottles of beer on the wall.
And Doug says it was a whole thing to get Yuengling into Florida about 8 years ago. So yeah, the number of breweries went from 4,173 dropped by over half to 1,568 by 1910. But they went to more than 60 million barrels from that 1 million. Consumption increased dramatically during the time from under 4 gallons in 1865 to 21 gallons.
Thank you, Mac. I'll be here all the week. Please remember to tip your waitress. Go on, dear.
So yeah, it went from 4 gallons in 1865 for consumption to 21 gallons in the early 1900s. And rail transport enabled breweries to just sustain production on a national scale. And speaking of that rail transport, I'm going to switch. Oh, let's go here.
Wait. Deb says it was the whole premise behind Smokey and the Bandit because it was true. Oh, wow. The whole, them trying to get it into Florida. Wow, I did not know that. What are you switching to, dear?
I'm pulling up a rule that I came across.
Oh, okay. Well, while we're waiting on that so we don't have dead air.
Yes.
I'm curious, do you happen to know which state has the most microbreweries? Again, this is per capita.
Forgive me, I want to go with I either want to go with New York or Missouri.
California. It leads the U.S. in microbreweries, with more breweries than any other state, making it a major hub for craft beer lovers. Do you know which state comes in at number 50?
I'm going to guess Rhode Island just because of the size.
No, actually. Coming in at number 50 is Mississippi with 0.6 breweries per capita. 0.6. They don't even have a full brewery per capita. That poor
I found what I was looking for.
Okay.
Being that we're just now touching on the railroad being transportation, and this would, for your microbreweries, would come in anybody who runs a microbrewery is going to be familiar with this rule. Anybody who brews at home, I would imagine, would be familiar with this rule. Are you familiar with the 330-300 rule?
Vaguely, but for the audience, go for it.
The breakdown is that beer it's a storage rule.
Right. I kind of
it
thought that.
lasts 3 days at 90 degrees.
Yep.
30 days at 72 degrees, and these are Fahrenheit, by the way, or 300 days at 38 degrees Fahrenheit. This highlights the importance of refrigeration for preserving the beer's flavor and aroma.
I know that when what was our favorite grocery store until they went out of business and closed, when I worked for them, they had started implementing beers that you could actually buy your own bottle. They would, and you could pick which beer you wanted. We usually carried 5 or 6 different from local microbreweries, and you could get, like, I think it was a half gallon or a gallon or whatever it was. I think it was a half gallon. And I think with refrigeration we could keep it up to I think I remember them saying 300, just shy of a year.
That would be your 300 days.
Yeah.
What that is at each of those levels, that 3 days at 90 degrees, 30 days at 72 degrees, or 300 days at 38 degrees, those lengths of times at those temperatures will result in the same degree of flavor loss.
Yeah.
So, if you're gonna go fishing for the weekend, you're okay.
Keep it in the ice chest.
Yeah. If you're gonna take it home with you, keep your fridge turn low, almost to freezing, and you can keep it in there for almost a year.
Yep.
It also has to do with the warmer temperatures accelerating oxidation.
Yep.
So that's what leads to the staleness.
Rock and roll keeps you sober. Okay.
So,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I didn't mean to cut you off, dear. I was actually gonna go into the list of breweries per 500,000 people.
Okay.
I was
gonna go into prohibition.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, because I think I'm almost done.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
With prohibition, total beer production had actually increased from 3.6 million barrels in 1865 to over 66 million barrels in 1914. By 1910, brewing had grown into one of the leading manufacturing industries in America. Yet this increase in output did not simply reflect our growing population. The number of beer drinkers certainly did rise during those years, but perhaps most importantly, per capita consumption rose dramatically from under 4 gallons in 1865 to 21 gallons in the early 1910s. If 21 gallons seems a bit excessive to you, the temperance movement would have agreed. Social and political pressure began to mount to curb alcohol consumption. Pardon me.
For those of you who aren't familiar with the temperance movement, that's the prudes that didn't agree with being allowed to have a social drink.
And they're the ones that this all culminated in the infamous Volstead Act.
The Volstead Act, yep.
Which enforced the newly ratified 18th Amendment. All of a sudden, production and distribution of alcohol stronger than 0.5%,
Good Lord.
was outlawed.
One,
So would that be one proof?
not even.
No?
Not even. Not even.
Okay. Now, I thought this was interesting because I had never thought about it. Spirits had the help of legal loopholes that beer didn't.
Some, yeah. But even they were affected.
Yes, but they had some legal loopholes that helped. Prescriptions and utilities as solvents, cleaners, and munitions for the spirits.
Yeah.
Wine had the wine industry could still make sacramental wine, and cideries benefited from a laissez-faire attitude, amounting to apples are going to ferment no matter what.
Right.
Options for breweries were limited, and about 60% of the nation's breweries would shut down during the 13 years of prohibition. Those that remained were able to pivot to dairy products like cheese and ice cream, or stayed afloat with near beer production or malt syrup. But the damage was compounded by the Great Depression and 2 world wars.
Now that brings up a question I have.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it was prohibition, and you may not know this, and that's fine. Well, we may have to look this up later. You were talking about malts. Was that where like malt vinegar came from? Is that a malt spirit that has gone bad, so they just turned it into a vinegar? A malt vinegar?
No, malt vinegar is not a malt spirit.
Okay, no, I again don't know.
No,
so
because there's not. I don't believe there's any alcohol at all in malt vinegar.
Okay, I personally like my fish with malt vinegar. It popped into my head when you said that, so I was curious.
No, malt vinegar is, I believe, an apple cider vinegar.
Okay,
but not. I don't believe that. I may be wrong, but I don't think.
If anybody in the chat happens to know, please, by all means, welcome back. By the way, Stephen Tree, welcome back. If anybody knows the answer to that question about the malt vinegar, let us know down in the comments.
Now, at this point, we have Fritz Maytag entering.
Like Maytag Electronics?
I have no idea. It just said
Fritz Maytag?
Yeah.
Okay.
He actually purchased the failing Anchor Brewing Company in 1965.
Okay.
Investing in production and cleanliness. Great beers, including the legendary, and I have never heard of these, but that may just be because I don't drink. Anchor Steam began paving the way for modern craft beers. New Albion, known by many as the first true American craft beer brewery, would follow, fittingly on the bicentennial, and 2 years later, Jimmy Carter would sign H.R. 1337 into effect.
1978. That was the one I was talking about earlier.
And that made the home brewing of beer and wine legal for all adults.
Yes.
The rest, as they say, is history. Is there anything that history can teach us as we careen into the chaos of the post-2020 civilization?
Was that a question?
For starters, for starters, there is value in sitting down with a good pint and having spirited dialogue. Perhaps even treading beyond the bounds of what is considered socially acceptable. In doing so, conflict gives way to resolution. Impasse becomes ways forward. A mind loosened with libation might think more innovatively and speak more boldly. A creative, communicative society or Congress, a couple of years removed from political correctness, might be just the prescription our nation needs to find a way back together. And so we might move forward. As John Adams wrote in a letter to his wife Abigail, and this is not the quote I was going to give you.
Okay.
Posterity. You will never know how much it costs the greatest generation to preserve your freedom. I hope you will make a good use of it. As a matter of fact, we do have an idea of how much it costs the founding fathers to preserve our freedom. 2 days before signing the Constitution, the 55 delegates of the Constitutional Convention met in the city tavern and drank 54 bottles of Madeira.
Madeira wine.
60 bottles of claret or claret. 8 bottles of whiskey. 22 bottles of porter. 8 of hard cider. 12 of beer. And 7 bowls of alcoholic punch. In total, it cost about $17,253.
And this was for what cause now?
This when they got together 2 days before signing the Constitution.
Ah, okay.
So this is for the Constitutional Convention.
Gotcha.
Let's get to work. Now,
hey,
let's see where I can find that. Go ahead, and I will give you that
let
quote
me-
in a little bit.
I'm gonna touch base on something Deb said in the chat. You posted the information about Coors. We have a tie. We have a tie here in Virginia Beach to Coors. The founder of Coors actually was either pushed or he jumped. We're not sure which. It was never determined. From the 3rd or 4th floor of the Cavalier Hotel in Virginia Beach. We covered that in a previous podcast. But yeah, when I saw you mention Coors, I know that the founder of Coors met his demise here in Virginia Beach.
Okay, I've got the quote.
Okay, go for it.
I am a firm believer in the people. If given the truth, they can be depended upon to meet any national crisis. The great point is to bring them the real facts and beer. Do you have any idea who said that? Which president?
Madison.
Mm-mm.
Who? Washington?
Lincoln.
Oh, the bastard.
Like I said, your favorite.
Note sarcasm.
It is all yours. I have given you all the information I found, and I did not mean to take up most of the hour.
You are good, sweetie. No problem. I'm going to need, for those of you who are interested in this, to run real quick, grab a pen and paper. This might come in handy for a few of you. I have one in particular in mind who is in the audience right now. If you're thinking about moving to closer to your favorite brewery, I'm going to give it to you by state and the number of. Actually, I'm going to give it to you by city. The top 25 by city with population per 50,000. Care to take a guess as to which one came in number 1? I was surprised when I read it.
Repeat the question.
Which city has the most breweries that has a population of 50,000?
50,000 or more?
Around 50,000. It didn't say or more because it did state that it ruled out Chicago and California, and those are definitely or more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Milwaukee would have more than 50,000.
Okay. Do you have a guess? Does anybody in the audience have a guess? You check the chat for me.
Yeah, I'm watching the chat.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and tell you which one it is. It happens to be Portland, Maine, with 18 breweries.
Deb's guess was Wichita.
Nope. I don't remember. We're going to go down the list. I don't recall seeing Wichita on the list. There is the second and number 2 comes in close to, I would think, not too far from Mac, closer than we are to Mac, and that is Asheville, North Carolina, with 17 breweries. Boulder, Colorado, has 14. Kalamazoo, Michigan, has 10 breweries in the city. These are within the city limits, ladies and gentlemen. Vista, California, Little Vista, California, has 10 breweries. Greenville, South Carolina, also has 10 breweries.
Deb says Hopping Gnome Brewery there is great. Where she is.
Hopping Gnome, I like that name.
Yeah.
Number 8 is Portland, Oregon. Care to take a guess how many breweries they have?
How many were in the with the list?
Greenville, South Carolina had 10. Vista, California had 10. Kalamazoo, Michigan had 10. Care to take a guess how many?
I'll say 9.
Yes. Portland, Oregon had 9. Pensacola, Florida has 9. This really surprises me because I know how sparse the population in Montana is. But I guess there's nothing better to do in Montana on a cold winter than drink. But Missoula, Montana has 8 breweries. That's a lot of beer for the population that I would imagine.
Says which one takes cod?
Which one takes cod? He's out for payment. Portland, probably. Portland, Maine, probably will take cod for payment. I don't know that for a fact. That is not I'm just saying that's just a joke. Port Collins has 8. Loveland, Colorado. Now, by the way, I will tell you that Colorado appears in here quite a bit. It is one of the states with the most microbreweries. But Loveland has 7. Grand Rapids, Michigan. I can't imagine making beer in Michigan after what I know about what is it, Battle Creek, that their water catches on. Flint, that's it. I can't imagine trying to make beer there. But they have 7. Santa Cruz has 7. Royal Oaks, Michigan has 7. Charleston, South Carolina. How many do they have? 7. Billingham, Washington. 7. Denver, Colorado. Only has 6. Longmont, Colorado. 6. You weren't far from here. Flagstaff, Arizona. How many do you think they have?
5.
6.
That was my other guess.
Yep. Rochester, New York has 6. Madison, Wisconsin. Oh, joy, Madison. How many do they have?
5.
6.
6?
6.
I looked up. I'm going to interrupt since you brought up Wisconsin.
Yes.
Do you know how to sign Milwaukee?
No clue.
If you put your thumb along your palm.
Yeah.
And fold your 4 fingers over the top.
Yeah.
And then put your pinky behind your thumb. So your thumb is over the top and your other 3 fingers are over your thumb.
You've just turned my thumb into a pretzel.
No.
Honey, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing this in the dark.
See if you can explain that better than that.
Wait, let me see.
I'm
Okay, so basically,
your 3 fingers, your index, middle, and ring finger, are over top.
you're
the
making
thumb.
a girl fist. You're basically making a girl fist with your thumb
Right.
tucked under, and yeah, you're making a girl. It would be a girl fist. So that's the
With
symbol.
your thumb over your pinky.
Yeah, that's a girl fist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the way I have actually read this in a book. Wipe beer from your chin.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
That
okay.
is how they tell you to sign the word Milwaukee.
Yeah. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you actually make a girl fist like that and hit somebody, you're going to break your thumb. Don't do it.
Now, because you went to Wisconsin, and because
I still have two left, so please keep that in mind.
Milwaukee
Yes.
has 24 craft breweries within its city limits.
I believe it. I believe it. Yakima, Washington. Can I take a guess? Actually, I have 3 more. I'm sorry. Yakima, Washington has 6.
Mm.
Lancaster, Pennsylvania also has 6. And coming in last on the list is Cincinnati, Ohio, which also has, say it with me, ladies and gentlemen, 6 breweries in town. Now, I do have a few fun facts if you're interested. This is from thehalfball.com. Did you know that craft brewers currently provide an estimated 424,000 jobs in the United States, including serving staff and brew pubs? Craft brewers make up to 98% of all U.S. operating breweries. Huh.
Max says duck butt.
Duck butt, smutty nose. Let's see if Deb's a true New Hampshireite. Smutty nose. That's some New Hampshire. That is smutty nose is a New Hampshire beer.
We're gonna back up just a minute because of the chat.
Okay.
Going back to the cod.
Yes.
Dub went in for talking about cod.
Okay.
And said cod is fished off Cape Cod.
Yes.
They aren't as prevalent off the main coast. In fact, when the colonists first came to America, they named it Cape Cod because they could almost walk across the bay on the cod.
Mm.
And Max said, not cod, the fish, cash on delivery.
Oh, COD. Ah, okay.
Mac, looking at my explanation of how to sign Milwaukee, says, y'all look crazy. My fingers go where? So maybe we can turn on the camera at some point and show him.
Let me read through the rest of these fun facts, and Mac, we'll teach you how to make the symbol for Milwaukee. We'll let Mrs. Mutt do it.
LOL, been a while since I had that.
Yeah, smutty nose. I used to work on Pease, and that's where the brewery was. They've moved the brewery for Smutty Nose beer onto what was at one point Pease Air Force Base. At least that was the case when I worked for the National Visa Center back in 99 and 2000. For the best flavor, craft beers should never be tasted from a shaker pint.
Why would you put a craft beer in a shaker pint?
I have no idea who would insult the beer like that.
Deb says, please. Pease used to be Pease Air Force Base.
Yes.
Her dad worked there.
Yep, Pease Air Force Base. Yep, it was Pease Air. Yeah, and then they closed it down, and it got turned into a bunch of other government things. And I'm not sure how Smutty Nose ended up on there, but it did. There's a few other civilian businesses that are now in business there. Adding some beer to your Marinade is supposed to soften the meat. The acids in the beer go to work on the proteins in the meat, whether it's cooked or uncooked.
That's why the Faceless Roommate, for example, marinates the chicken in buttermilk.
Yeah.
The acids in the buttermilk break down the protein.
Yep. The first ever beer brewers were all women in ancient Peru. Breweries were operated by women of the elite class.
Deb says it's great on certain beef recipes.
Yep.
Deb, you may have to share a few of those.
The thirstiest country in the world per capita is the Czech Republic. It consumes an average of 148.6 liters of beer each year, or about 418 12-ounce bottles per person per year.
Deb says German recipes call for a lot of beer.
Yes, they do.
Call for beer, which, of course, as a matter of fact, we have a restaurant here in the Hampton Roads area. Beer Garden, BIER, but they're known for carrying a large variety of different beers from all over.
Yes.
One of my favorite names that I know they've carried in the past, if they don't still carry it, is St. Pauli Girl. And Max says that he does drink a lot of beer, but after 3, tastes don't matter.
You can get St. Pauli Girl in almost any grocery store in town.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
I know that's where I heard the name St. Pauli Girl being carried.
Yep. St. Pauli Girl is a common beer here in the area. You can buy it in almost any grocery store.
I had to.
I would like to finish these
ahead.
fun facts, please. Store your beer upright at in room temperature, and the dark keeps them fresh. Number 8. In 2010, the world's this is the one that I really found interesting. In 2010, and Mac, we would have to share this because I would want to try this just once to say I tried it. I'm just saying. And I thought of you when I read this. It would be something you and I could go do together. In 2010, the world's oldest drinkable beer was found on a Baltic Sea shipwreck. The ship is believed to have sailed over 200 years ago. So that beer is like 200 years old. Just because it's that old, I would want to try just a little bit of it. I'm just saying.
Deb says the number 1 German restaurant in USA by sales is Hollerback's in Sanford, Florida, just north of Orlando. If I go there, does that make me a Hollerback girl?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're from there, you're a Hollerback girl. If you're from there,
or you're for waitress there, you're definitely a Hollerback girl.
More than likely, yeah. Here we go. Xenophobia is the fear of an empty glass. A good reason to keep a well-stocked fridge, ladies and gentlemen. Number 10. Craft beer is good for your bones because it has a high level of silicone.
Deb says when you go there, the food is amazing, but apparently, I'm assuming this is the staff wears lederhosen.
Sounds like yeah. The United States is the second largest hop producer in the world behind Germany. Now, this is something that we as cat owners need to keep in mind, honey. Hops are poisonous to pets, so keep an eye on your furry friends. if you're home brewing. If I decided to home brew, we'd have to store the hop somewhere else. Not that I'm going to, because it's just not something that I'm interested in.
No.
But yeah, hops are apparently poisonous to your pets.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, if you want to brew some, or get into that sort of thing, you can do wine because I will help eat grapes.
Oh, well, okay. In medieval Europe, the average person drank 220 to 250 liters of beer a year, as it had undergone fermentation and was cleaner and safer to drink than the water, as we stated earlier.
Yeah.
Yes. I've got a couple more here. The
Jeff
term.
says Kayla likes. I'm sorry.
Please let me finish.
I was just doing the chat. Sorry.
Let me finish, and then we will discuss the chat. I will happily. We can carry on a whole nother hour of chat. The term rule of thumb originated from brewers who would stick their thumb into the mix to see when the temperature was right for adding the yeast. I didn't know that's where the rule of thumb came from.
That's the big one.
Well, anyway, it's also been said that the rule of thumb is the size of the stick you could beat your wife with on the yeah. I know, I've heard that one before too. On the courthouse steps on a Sunday. Number 15, for those of you who are gardeners, slugs and snails happen to love beer. If you're looking to rid your garden of these pests, put some beer in a shallow container at night.
Pie tins are great.
I would think so. Yeah.
That's what I've been told.
Yep. Did you know that most Americans live only 10 miles away from a craft brewery? Or did you also know, this is another one, that President Barack Hussein Obama is among the many, many U.S. president homebrewers? We've already listed several that came before him. But yes, that was the last one. And now, if the chat has any questions or has comments that we have not gotten to, I will happily entertain them, because, well, let's face it, folks, you're here, we're here, we may as well enjoy.
Doug says Kayla likes vodka, the little nut.
Why are you giving her vodka?
Well,
I want to know why she's giving.
Well,
that's hard on her kidneys.
I gave when I had Precious, not realizing what it was going to cause. Precious was my Dalmatian. I gave her a taste of pucker one night. She loved it. The only problem, she ended up having a seizure. I never gave that dog alcohol again.
Man, St. Pauli girl has.
Sorry, go ahead.
St. Pauli girl has clickbait. I've drank 89-year-old vodka. 1 cent tax stamp. Got sick as heck. I'm sorry, Mac. So I guess the 200-year-old beer is out with me then? I guess we're not going to do that since you got sick on the... Okay, that's fine. I just thought it would be something that we could have, gone and done together, but it's cool. I can understand being cautious. Copper tubing is as good as gold. I know what he's talking about there. If for those of you who don't know, go back and watch our moonshine episode, which you can find after you clicked, liked, and shared this. Please, by all means, go back and check our other 60 some odd shows. We do have one on moonshining where we do talk about the fact that copper is good for that. She stole it from my... Okay. Oh, okay. So she stole it from your friend, and she was being... Okay. Yes?
Nothing. Just...
Oh. wait a minute. My beer is better than Billy Beer. Oh, yeah, anything is better than Billy Beer. I'm going to put that out there up front. I tried it one time. Swore I'd never try it again. That stuff is gross.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not familiar.
Billy Beer.
Uh-huh.
Billy Beer was started, I believe Mac might be more versed on this than I am, but I believe that was started by Jimmy Carter's brother.
Mm.
And it was a very cheap, gross beer.
You know, I'm sorry, but you know, we have our little Monday thing ritual that we do, and I see that one particular commercial for beer every Monday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Billy Carter. Yeah, the president's brother. Yep.
And I look at that particular beer, and I'm thinking that can't be all that great.
Why should why should the Russians have all the fun? Is that the one?
No.
Oh, okay.
Um.
Okay, yeah, I know which one you're talking about now. Yeah, by the one with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't strike me.
American beer, brother. No, I can't imagine that. No, this is not a promotion for any beer in particular. So we are not promoting a beer. We
are definitely not sponsored by any.
We are definitely not sponsored by any. But if any do decide they'd like to sponsor us, you can reach me or us. You can reach us at scottanddanicaward@gmail.com.
And if any of you listening at any given time decide to partake, please do not drink and drive.
This is not a public service announcement, but it is a suggestion.
There is our disclaimer for safety's sake.
There we go. 1976. Yeah, that sounded familiar. 1976 did sound familiar. Yeah, somebody in all honesty, I was a kid. It was one of those things where the father of a friend had some Billy beer. Ooh, I want to try it. I took a sip, knew immediately it was not for me, and walked away from it.
You know, funny story about trying beers. My grandfather very much loved his Budweiser.
It's great for cooking.
I don't think I really ever saw that man drink anything other than Budweiser except orange juice and Diet 7-Up. One day, as a young girl, I remember taking some things out to the kitchen, including a Budweiser can that had something in it.
Oh no. Oh
and
no.
Thinking to myself,
oh no.
Gee, Grandpa drinks an awful lot of this.
No.
It must be awfully good. I wonder what it tastes like.
Oh God.
And taking a taste.
Oh no.
And thinking, it tastes like water. What's the big deal?
Okay.
And I knew it was not something I was supposed to be drinking, but it was just a taste. So it wasn't, not a big deal, but I knew, again, it wasn't something I was supposed to drink, so I kept my mouth shut for over 10 years. One night, my mother, my aunt, and I are sitting in my aunt's living room, and we're talking. And at this point, I probably have to be 20 years old or darn close to it.
Hold on a minute. Deb says something here. I'm just trying to read it. Wasn't one beer found
to have metal plates in it, and it has a whole had a whole recall in the 80s, maybe?
I don't remember that, honestly.
I remember there were all sorts of things found in Coke bottles or Pepsi bottles.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that, but I don't remember beer being on that list. Anyway, go on, dear. I'm sorry.
like I said, I kept my mouth shut. Until, maybe I wasn't in my 20s, but I was darn close to 18, 16 to 18, I would say. And I finally confessed. I finally fessed up. My aunt busted out laughing.
Mm-hmm.
Just absolutely. And I'm sitting here thinking, what on earth? My aunt looks at me and she says, that must be the day that we filled your grandfather's can of beer with water to see if he could tell the difference. Max says, camping with Steve has beer donations. He's kicking butt with a lot of fun. Wish y'all figure it out. Figure it or send the
unwanted to me. Well, I'll tell you what, if they can figure out how to send the unwanted portions to you, you can split that with us because we could really use the funds because that would help us boost the channel. I'm just saying, any donation. But anyway, I'm not. Mrs. Mutt, shame on you.
I know, I was horrible.
No.
I knew I wasn't supposed to drink it, but I was curious.
Curiosity killed the cat.
And it was just one sip.
Well, I have a picture. Well, I don't have it. I'm sure my mother still has it somewhere. Possibly among the thousands and thousands of pictures of me sitting on
thousands and thousands of pictures. What do you know about pictures? Your family doesn't take pictures.
It never happened. We are the reason that the saying is if it's not on film, it didn't happen. But there is a picture of me somewhere sitting on my grandfather's lap, holding a Budweiser. I'm probably 4, maybe 4, possibly 5, taking a big old swig of his Budweiser. Now, me personally, the only thing I think Budweiser is good for, and I'm not saying this to offend anybody, but this is just my personal opinion. I think Budweiser is great for cooking crab.
Now, see, my grandfather would always pour it over the turkey at Thanksgiving.
I've heard of that. I've never tried it, but I have heard of it. But yeah, we would boil our crab in beer with Old Bay seasoning. That's how we would make them. Love it that way. Fantastic. But yep. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all have enjoyed Amazing for Crab. Exactly, Deb. Exactly.
Actually, hold on. I'm looking something up.
Oh, Mrs. Mutt has one more thing to share. I did not realize. I apologize there.
I'm not finding a year. I'm finding. I just Googled beer found to have metal flakes.
Yeah.
It says this is the AI results, and it says while the initial search results didn't explicitly address metal flakes in beer, they highlight metal contamination issues in the brewing process, including traces of metal like arsenic, cadmium, and lead. Research has also focused on the presence of quote-unquote forever chemicals in beer, which are linked to contamination from drinking water sources.
That might have been what she was talking about. Yes, it does, Deb. I can 100% agree with that. She says beer brings out the sweetness and the flavor of the crab. Yep. Indeed, it does. I have to admit, she is not wrong there. And I am going to take a moment. I know this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but since we have Ms. Russell in the chat, I am going to take a moment and promote an upcoming interview I do on Mutts American Crime with our very own Deb Russell. So be on the lookout for that. It will be in a couple of weeks, maybe closer to a month. But I did want to make mention of it since we have her tonight. That there will be an interview with her on Mutts American Crime. It involved an incident involving a family member of hers. So be on the lookout for that, ladies and gentlemen. If you're not already subscribed over there, please feel free to hit that subscribe button. There is a lot more content coming your way over there as well. Do we have a topic for next week? I suppose it would be my turn to pick.
Yours, but
it is.
You see Matt's comment.
I am looking at that now. 4-year-old mutt drinking on. Yep. More than likely, Mac, you're not wrong. It's probably, and I do not exaggerate this. This is not an exaggeration. At least it wasn't the last time I looked. It is probably in one of the ceiling to floor stack of photo albums that is in what was my bedroom in my parents' house in the closet. It is probably in one of those photo albums, and literally the photo albums are stacked ceiling they were stacked ceiling to floor. So yeah, it is more than it likely is. That's where it's at. You are 100% correct. 1 billion bottles of beer in the yard. No, nope, nope. Now cans, aluminum cans, you can throw it. If we're going to drink beer out of a can, by all means, throw it in my backyard. I'll go up there later and scoop them up, collect the aluminum, and we'll go make some money. But yeah, there. We do not know what the topic for next week is going to be. I will say that is it the following week that I have?
Let me pull up the calendar. And
I have surgery coming up on June 10th, and I'm supposed to be.
So we will have
no show.
The show on the 4th.
Yeah, we will have the show on the 4th,
but not the 11th, and we can't say for sure on the 18th.
I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
No offense, folks, but that's literally supposed to be the day after I get home from the hospital. Supposed to be. Yes. That's why I said supposed to be. So on the 18th, there will not be a show, nor will there be one on the, what did we say, the 11th?
The 11th and the 18th.
The 11th and the 18th, there will be no show because Mutt will be in the hospital. So please, if you keep us on your calendar, mark that on the calendar. And please, if you're of the praying kind, keep me in your prayers. This is a very serious surgery. You out, Mac? Mac, thank you for joining us. Love you, brother. Take care. Remember to hit the beer donation jar on your way out. I'm just saying. Be safe. We'll catch you later, bro.
So I guess that's Steel and Tree cleaning the.
Yeah, I guess Steel and Tree, if he's still in, he was in here. If Max headed out, then I guess we're gonna have to have Steel and Tree or maybe Deb clean the
balcony.
The peaker balcony, yeah, where the peakers all hide. But anyway, we will catch you all later. We want to say a very heartfelt thank you for joining us tonight. As always, stay safe and look out for each other if you get the chance. And I am, of course, going to give Mrs. Mutt the final word because she is, after all, one half of this team. And I know that she wants you all to be safe. So,
have fun storming the castle.